All Things Motoring International is owned and brought to you by SA's most trusted online vehicle platform, CHANGECARS. Our name says it all. Whether you're looking to sell, need advice, need finance, or need insurance, CHANGECARS has you covered. Coming up this week on All Things Motoring International, Mike interviews Michael Rogers, an exceptionally talented motorsport artist. And Ernest does our last retro review for the season. This is a show filled with nostalgia.
I've said it many times, the ethos of the show is to showcase our beautiful country, our incredible cars, and our equally incredible people. Today, the focus is on people. Michael Rogers, I've known you for 25 years. 1999 was when you commissioned a piece for me, but we're going to come to that in a moment. 25 years feels like yesterday.
It does.
But for the audience, who is Michael Rogers?
Essentially, I'm a South African motorsport artist.
You had to think about that.
Well, yeah, I've done many other things. I've done golf, a lot of aviation.
The show's called All Things Motoring. So
I know.
just mentioning.
It always comes back to motoring. In fact, the wheel just continues to turn in my favor.
Your works of art, Michael, are exceptional. I said it before, I did a short on you.
You did, yeah.
Attention to detail, the way your art looks, it looks like a quality picture. People have different views on what art should be. For me, art should look like the original. Often I look at a Monet or whatever those other famous people are that painted, and I don't know what they painted. I just see lines. I want to see a person that looks like they would in real life, and that is what you focus on.
Yeah, definitely, Mike. What I've always tried to do from a very young age, I started portraiture.
Right.
And did so many. I did a whole lot of animals, pets. And when I got to the motorsport side, I just felt that it was going to be of relevance to have a face, a portrait, along with, be it the car, the motorcycle. You know, I know people always identify, let's say it's a Formula One car. So I think a face with the car, it's just for the lover, the collector, let's call it the collector. He has now the face of his icon, of his call it his hero, the guy he loves, and you've got the car. So at the same time, you've got the two things happening. In 1985, I started to train as a technical illustrator.
It's incredible. Almost 40 years ago, 39 years ago.
That's crazy.
It's gone overnight.
What happened to the time, yeah.
Sure.
And that just brought a whole lot of accuracy into the paintings. So a technical accuracy with the portraiture work, combining the two, for myself, gives the buyer the satisfaction.
Now, Mike, earlier you touched on the motorsport aspect of your art. When you start out as an artist, I'm sure the first car that comes to mind is a Ferrari 308 or a Porsche 911.
Exactly.
Where did the motorsport component come in for you?
I think just my love for biking and being a biker. So it always led toward that self.
Yeah.
You know, it was going to go in that direction. I was a bit of a Doohan fan, I still am. And you know...
You've got a great first name, I just want to mention to you.
Thank you. Mick, yeah.
Typical Aussie name.
And you know what I loved about Mick? Still today, if you see him, because his son Jack, I think, is in Formula 2 at the moment.
Correct.
And Mick will be at the track with his T-shirt on, as he always
Totally
did.
normal guy. I always say, when you see a true superstar and he comes across as totally nondescript, that's when you know, in my eyes, that he's a true superstar.
Yeah, yeah. no fanciness with doing, you know.
course.
It's that.
I mean, he was the absolute trendsetter in my eyes. Prior to him, you had Eddie Lawson, you had
Eddie
Wayne
Lawson.
Rainey, you had
Yeah.
Kenny Roberts. These were superstars. But
Superstars.
nobody won the amount of titles that he did consecutively. He won 4 titles in a row.
Yeah, he ended up with 5, I think,
Correct.
Mike. In those days, and I'm sure you know, a 500cc bike, all it wanted to do was kill you.
Literally. The moment you started up, it wanted to kill you.
It wasn't rideable. That's why we had a band or a group of riders, or a small pack, and they often got hurt, and a lot of them retired because of injury.
Correct, correct.
So, yeah.
But I
tough.
mean, in the 80s, in the 90s, even until the early 2000s, well, the safety gear in Formula One,
Yeah.
the safety in Formula One improved tremendously.
Did.
In MotoGP, it didn't. I mean, today, I think the driver's suits have airbags. Am I correct?
They do. Look, helmet technology, better helmets, boots, gloves. There's a lot more safety to it. If we just quickly compare the 500, it would chuck you off in any corner. Nowadays, there's a bit more, given a bit more leeway.
Correct.
Riders can feel
Progressive.
progressive.
So if I say to you, Mike, your favorite piece you've ever done, besides the Nelson PK piece you did for me in 1999, what is it?
It's got to be Brad Binder. Proudly South African. A bit of my heart and soul goes into every painting, of course. But because it's local content,
Yes.
getting to know the Binder family, been super nice to me, as well as, let's not forget, the Woodendahl family. Super nice, approachable.
Yes.
And so those are the ones
That stick out.
stick out for me.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I always say, when I do something, it's got to resonate with me. Now, when I think of Brad Binder, all you see is a humble, well brought up, engaging, outgoing extrovert.
Yeah, for me, you know, we when we get together, we watch it together. You expect something, the T-shirts out there that says, "How's it brew?"
Yeah.
So South African. And another thing we love, he'll be on the podium or be interviewed and he'll say, "Yes, it was a hard race." Yes, it's
Yes.
so South African.
Exactly that. You know, you look at the Australians, they've got their unique mannerism, but anyone, anywhere in the world will be able to tell you he's a South African O. And
Yeah,
it's just
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, or yeah, exactly
That's
what you
it.
said. And I love that. You're still young. Everything about you says I'm youthful. You love motorsport.
I do.
The MotoGP riders, Formula One riders, they are
Yeah.
young. The passion to paint, clearly still there.
100%, 100%.
Not even
Yeah.
halfway, you're saying.
No, it's my other job. Let's put it that way.
I've known Michael since 1999. I was put onto him by another friend at the time who said, "Michael, your love for Nelson PK will never die. If you want to keep that love alive forever, let him commission a piece for you." I love your work. I've said it openly. Michael and myself have been speaking. There's going to be 4 pieces of art that I promise you, you heard it from the host of All Things Motoring, will absolutely blow your mind, whether you're in South Africa, in Europe, South America, North America, or Asia. The pieces we're going to do, is it fair to say, will be standout?
I wouldn't say extra effort. It's just because it is so important, the pieces we've discussed. And also to put it on a world platform this time.
On your screen right now, you'll see Michael's details, his cell phone number, his email address. It will be an absolute pleasure for him to engage with you. If you've got any piece specifically that possibly is already done that you'd like a print of, or like I did in 1999, my all-time hero, Michael, for the audience, are you happy to do a piece of anybody? As long as it's
Sure.
got PK in it? Sorry,
As long as it's got PK in it. Yeah, certainly. What I do is a typical piece would take between 2 and 3 months to complete. And then, of course, we just got to remember the drying time
course.
of an oil. It's a lot of effort that goes into it.
course.
And the end result, you as the customer, you want to love it. And I want to love giving it to you.
Michael, there's not a shadow of doubt in a career path like this and where you're at, there must be a lot of people that have helped you along the way. I don't know,
Certainly.
framers, people, anyone you want to give a shout out to?
You know, there are so many people. Motor Rider World, the Voice of Choice,
Nice.
Greg Maloney. I've always used Rand Art Framers, who in fact have sponsored the art glass on the Max Verstappen piece. An incredible piece of glass. Call it invisible. You feel like you want to touch the Giglet print.
But
It's
that's
amazing.
exactly it. Michael Rogers, to say it's been a pleasure to interview you is an understatement. Thank you for the incredible contribution you've made to art in South Africa.
thank you for the kind words, and thanks so much to your show and the hosting of it. I really appreciate the time and being here to share my art stories with you. It's really appreciated. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Michael Rogers would like to send out a massive thank you and shout out to all the people that helped him along his art journey. None of this would have been possible without your continued support. Coming up after the break, Ernest is back with our last retro review of the season.
Hey, can you turn that off? That's really loud.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, do you know how fast you were going back there?
I'm trying to keep up with traffic.
There is no traffic.
That's how far behind I am.
Are you looking to sell? Visit Change Cars and click on the Selling tab.
So our adventure continues here at Idle, here at Monte Casino. It is a beautiful Sunday, and I'm here with Garth, who's got a 350Z. Now, there are a couple of them around here, but this one is special. Why?
It's no longer a V6 350Z. It's now a 5.7-litre Corvette V8 motor.
How do you squeeze an engine that size in here?
We literally massaged it in with Vaseline.
Do you ride on the roads?
Yes, we do track days with it as well. Okay. Also a bit of drifting just on the side for fun. Nice. And most of all, robot to robot.
There we go. So if you catch this beast on the road, just know Garth is behind the wheel.
Super. Cheers.
The year is 1976 and you've just purchased a brand new VW Beetle 1600L. But let's fast forward to now, 2024. What similarities does this car have with a modern car? It's got 4 wheels, 4 tires and a steering wheel, but that's about where it ends. Which is why I'm gonna do a deep dive with the VW Beetle 1600L behind me, because this is Retro Review. Let's start with the front. You've got this chrome bumper over here with integrated indicators. Pretty high tech for the time. Then you've got these reflectors here, which are OEM fitted. And remember, it's white for the front and red for the back. In the front, of course, you've got the chrome detailing around the headlights. And then, of course, this is where you open the bonnet. Easy action, and underneath here you've got the full-sized Ross-style spare wheel. Even modern cars today don't come with spare wheels oftentimes and have the fidgety little gel. No, no, no. This is what you want. This over here is what Porsche owners call the frunk. It's got some space to put some things. There's not a lot going on in front here, but that doesn't matter. The owner is very proud of this car, and we'll talk to him later because he's a huge PK fan. You guys might know who I'm talking about. Every single spring on this car works perfectly. And inside here, interestingly, you'll see the details for what the KPA on the tires are supposed to be. These tires, incidentally, are 15-inch, which was ginormous for the time. With these retro reviews, we like to choose cars that are period correct and as they were when they first came out. And this car is no different. I mean, just look at the function on the locking mechanism and then the doors. I mean, this is better than the Golf Mark 1. Of course, we've got the chrome bumpers that jut out the back on these stalks over here. Typical crash protection of the time. And then there's the engine, which, and watch this, starts first time. And of course, let's not forget those twin rear exhausts, because this, folks, is the 1600L. So sitting inside this car is, as Mike always puts it, jumping inside a time capsule. You've got the most comfy seats you've ever experienced. Don't we just miss springed seats? Hey? No lumbar support and no side sills that bother the hips. It's just a comfortable seat to get you from A to B. But no headrests. But who needs headrests in the 70s? I mean, we don't have inertia-real seat belts either, only these units that do clip at the back there, though. I still need to figure out how I'm going to put these on, though. You've got these winding windows over here where every action of every component is absolutely spot on. And who remembers the Ram air conditioning of old? Because there won't be any aircon in this one, that I can promise you. What there is, though, is a heater. And that heater is worked from the side of the handbrake over here with these two levers, each of which opens the vents at the back. Clever, interesting, and functional.
Coming up after the break, we finish off our final retro review and chat with the owner of this beautiful blue gem. Did you know? The original Beetle design was not thanks to its creator, Ferdinand Porsche, but rather an 18-year-old Hungarian student named Bela Bareni. His design was submitted to Volkswagen in 1925 and is recognized as the original design of the Beetle. The Beetle has many contributions to automotive history. For example, two of the main vehicles produced during the war were variants of the Beetle. In 1949, the Beetle convertible went into production, and in 1950, the Beetle became the best-selling car of the decade, with a share of around 40% of the market. Staggering to think that one car could be this popular when compared to the sea of cars for sale today. The original Beetle was built for 65 years, from 1938 to 2003, and is the longest produced vehicle in history. Incidentally, one of the most famous Beetles is the race car from the Herbie film series. The white number 53 is still one of the most popular paint jobs for many Beetle enthusiasts. Looking for finance and insurance? Visit Change Cars and click on the Financial Products tab.
So here we are behind the wheel of the VW Beetle, and so far so good, I gotta say. But let's start with the things we don't like. We're going on a downhill, and yeah, that is the brake pedal, but there is zero feel on that brake pedal, people. Zero. It is, of course, drum brakes all round, which means that you don't get the cooling of discs on the front. Now, the brakes work. And if you recall, one of the big problems with these cars was when you brake, it pulled to the side. This car doesn't do that. It doesn't pull to the side at all when you brake. In fact, it slows down perfectly straight. But you do have to kind of plan your braking a little bit more than in most cars. The steering is pretty responsive in the middle, surprisingly, but it's not a big dead zone. For those of you guys that don't know what lock-to-lock was or is, it was something that all manufacturers bragged about when the car would turn left or right. And this one's lock-to-lock is very, very impressively low, especially for a car without power steering. This little mechanism over here is, for me, one of my favorites. I always remember that on most cars that had them, it didn't really work. But on this car, it works flawlessly, and you can even lock it perfectly into place. Now, the suspension. It's pretty hard, but comfortable in the sense that you don't get any of those jarring bumps. And I think that's because of the higher profile tires on here that were so common back in the day. And I love it. I think it drives really well. This car, though, I have to admit, is probably one of the better driving Beetles you'll ever see. So this is the standard when it comes to how a car like this is supposed to drive. I'm sitting quite close to the steering wheel, as you can see. And I've got my seatbelt on, which is adjustable from the bottom, incidentally. But the reason I'm sitting so close is because I'm trying to get to this clutch pedal, and the clutch pedal is actually quite far to the left. The brake and accelerator feel like they're in the right spot, but the clutch feels like it's far over on the passenger side. Interesting quirk of the time for a car like this. In the front here, you only get one dial, and that dial houses the speedo and fuel tank and not much else. I don't see a heat gauge yet, so yeah, I think we better get this car back as soon as possible because I don't want to deal with an overheating Beetle in the middle of Joburg. The switchgear on this car is almost perfect. When it comes to the light switches, when it comes to the cubbyhole, the indicator, everything works exactly as it did when this car was first produced. And then one of my favorite features, something that in most cars doesn't work, but in this car still does. It is just unbelievable that all of these features are still so as good as new, because this is really impressive. Of course, you only get one rear view mirror, which is adjustable like this. It doesn't have a rim though. It's actually a sort of a rimless rear view mirror, which I've only seen again in very modern cars like Volvo's new EX30 and others. So some state-of-the-art technology over there, or should I say state-of-the-art technology. So when I said that the owner of this vehicle might be someone familiar to you all, this is who I was talking about. Michael, this one's just been added to the garage. Please don't interrupt me while I'm talking. I'm the host of the show. But over to you now. Please tell us about your beautiful car.
Absolute pleasure to be a guest. This particular vehicle's got a wonderful story. You did a little piece on it at Cars in the Park in George, the old George car show.
Yeah, a friend of yours, in fact, was there, and you asked me to go have a chat to him, check out the car. We had a casual conversation, and then next thing I know,
Stefanus Potgieter, I've known you close on 20 years. I never knew you owned an original, immaculate, one family-owned VW Beetle. When I did find out, unfortunately, it was game over for you.
when it comes to this car, let's talk about the driving experience. I've just driven it now. You were just telling me off camera that you didn't know it had a synchro mesh when you first got it. It drives incredibly smoothly.
Now, I've often mentioned I've been in the motor trade for 30 plus years. I may have, but I don't recall ever driving a VW Beetle before this. When I drove this car for the first time, I was blown away. It's tractable, the synchro gearbox, the light steering. You drive on the highway 100, 110, you're keeping up with traffic. Absolutely stand out. If you took any youngster today who's just going to go get their driver's license, 18 years old, put them in a Kia Picanto, Hyundai Atos, or any car of that caliber, I promise you it is super, super easy. Try drive this. The gears are smooth, but they're not like silky smooth.
You need to position them exactly right. Even reverse gear, but this car again, when you go to reverse gear, it's in a weird spot, but it's in the same spot every time.
For sure. Now, what is interesting for me, cars of this period, many are well restored. This is not well restored. This is well maintained. Everything works. The window winders, the little quarter vents. I'm sure you checked that out.
Oh yeah, I've checked every little detail on this car. And although there aren't that many features, the features that are on here work.
Absolutely. Talking about working, we would love to work for you, our fans, our followers. If you have any vehicle from this period, a little bit older, a little bit newer, call us, call me. He'll do the work.
Here's the screen top tip of the week. Put a first aid kit in the boot of your car. You never know when you might need it. Before you buy a second-hand car, screen it. It's what smart people do. Coming up next week on All Things Motoring International, we end off our season with Mike attending a Porsche concourse event, and Ernest takes part in the Mischief Garage 9 Hours of Lemons. This is a show with speed and beauty.
I've done many other things. I've done golf, a lot of aviation,
The show's called All Things Motoring.
I know.
Just mentioning.
The year is 1978. and the Hardy-Dos have just invaded Johannesburg. And one more thing before we go. Mike, please don't sit on the gentleman's car, man. Of course, this is where you open... Oh, there we go. Again.
I'm the owner. I have permission. Mike, permission granted.
Ah, look at that. The sun just came out. And perfect segue into our air conditioning discussion. Why? Because there isn't any.
I need to mention that a typical piece would take between 2 and 3 months to complete.
And I need to mention that all good things come to those who wait.
Staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find, reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it, release your inhibitions, feel the rain.
Do you need any motoring advice? From where or what to buy and where to sell? Visit the All Things Motoring International website and click the Advice tab to ask Mikey. All Things Motoring International was brought to you by SA's most trusted online vehicle platform, CHANGECARS. Our name says it all. There is no safer online vehicle platform. That's not an opinion, that's a fact.